Welcome back to India Today's continuing coverage from strife-torn Kyiv in Ukraine. Let me now tell you about life of the common man and woman here on the streets of Kyiv and in other parts of Ukraine. There are bombs that are raining down. The Russians are intensifying their assault. Their final objective is the Ukrainian capital Kyiv. Their objective is regime change. They're targeting the gas supply. They're targeting the oil supply. So gas and oil supplies to Kyiv are interdicted. They are impacted. But that's not all that they're targeting. There are reports that there are bombs that are falling to the west, and that's the only region that has so far been relatively free from the Russian assault. The Russian forces are coming from the north, south and east. But even west is not safe. How are people coping in the line of fire? This report tells us more.
A lonesome violin crying its tune in a basement. Unappreciated, fearful and alone. Waiting for the next bomb to fall. Yet defiant, to play on till the sound of war can no longer be heard. Photos and video of a crying newborn, wrapped in blanket, and a smiling mother. From the other side of divide, in Luhansk. Still a child of war. The violin plays on, a mournful background to newly turned rubble. Lives that were normal less than a month ago. Buildings that housed dreams and hopes and everyday matters. More than 200 schools, around 35 hospitals, and hundreds of residential buildings, possibly close to 2,000, have been destroyed since the war began in Ukraine 2 weeks ago. Towns and villages across the eastern half of the besieged country do not have electricity and water. And in the intense cold of the snow-covered terrain, there is no heat. Millions of ordinary Ukrainians are hiding in bunkers and shelters, shivering in the cold uncertainty of mounting loss. UNICEF has put up this appeal on their landing page on Ukraine. Children in Ukraine are facing a deadly crisis as the hostilities in their country are increasing. Like all conflicts, this is turning into a children's crisis, and they will need as much humanitarian support and help as we can provide. UNICEF says there are 7.5 million children in Ukraine, and the war poses an immediate threat to their lives and well-being. With the intensifying of indiscriminate bombing of civilian targets, lives are being lost, and some of them are children. On 7th of March, human rights sources inside Ukraine released actual numbers of children killed, 38 dead and 71 injured. The survivors are rushing to the borders, clad in their winter clothing, holding on to their mothers or elders, trusting hands clasping those of adults, making unplanned journeys to the unknown, to faraway lands where strangers try and make them feel welcome.
Just 2 days ago, we had a transport of 700 kids. And, it's not easy to find a place for anybody, but it's even tougher to find a place for 700 kids in the same one place.
As their homes and lives are torn apart by other unseen strangers, firing big guns from somewhere beyond the dreadful horizon. Natasha A 16-year-old Ukrainian refugee from before this war even started writes, "The war came to us and happiness is no more than a ghost from my dreams." Natasha used to live in the seaside village of Shirokh in eastern Ukraine. The last time she saw her house, she was 11. Natasha writes, "Our hearts are full of sadness. We have no home. The night is black." Two children died among the 21 on Tuesday in Sumy. The victims had been killed in an airstrike on a residential street. At that time, a ceasefire was supposed to be in force. Volunteers building barricades and installing them on the streets. Hopes of slowing the advance of tanks and armor on roads meant for peacetime traffic. A father's goodbye. Women and children fleeing. At a border crossing, a pianist. A bullet-ridden bus in Kyiv. A comrade gone away. And a wedding in fatigues, in times when only the present remains, the future obscure. Every day that the war in Ukraine goes on, every day that the bombs rain from above, every time another school goes up in flames, and every bullet that takes a parent away, another Natasha's heart fills with sadness. 100 hearts sad, and the night stays black.
This attack is not just taking place on ground, it's not just from air. This is a war that's also being fought in cyberspace. And Russia is not just targeting Ukraine. The information that Ukrainians are sharing with us seems to indicate that it's a multi-pronged offensive. This multi-pronged offensive also has forces from Belarus that are targeting the Ukrainian forces, and they are actually being trapped within. This war in cyberspace is also being waged on multiple platforms. This attack is on Ukrainian government websites, it's on banks, it's on other institutions, and Ukraine says while some of their cybersecurity has been taken care of by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries, these attacks in cyberspace are relentless, as our next report tells you.
President Putin is waging a hybrid war, and the latest escalation is in cyberspace with multiple cyber attacks. Cyber attacks targeting ordinary civilians and Ukrainian state-owned digital assets with the use of complex wiper malware and ransomware. As the Russian army continues to bombard Ukrainian cities, the Russia-linked Shuk group is targeting ordinary civilians by conducting cyber espionage attacks. Ukrainians are being targeted with complex and sophisticated phishing attacks, malware, and ransomware. Ukraine's Cyber Defense Force has issued a warning on social media with a widespread attempt to infect citizens with malicious software. Ukrainian authorities have also blamed Russian-allied Belarusian hackers for the attacks on its citizens. Ukraine's largest state-owned bank, private bank, and Sberbank have also been targeted with a new malware called Hermetic Wiper. Numerous government ministries and financial service organizations have been hit by distributed denial of service attacks. Earlier, a series of DDoS cyber attacks have knocked out the websites of some ministries, major banks, and has also forced the Ukrainian army off the internet. In retaliation, Ukraine's State Service of Special Communications has launched an IT army of Ukraine to carry out cyber attacks on Russian targets. The ministry has said that as many as 400,000 hackers are now fighting online for Ukraine. Russia has also been hit by a spate of cyber attacks from the hackers collective Anonymous, which has declared cyber war on President Putin. Mr. Putin, the ongoing invasion of Ukraine has shown that your regime has no respect for human rights or the self-determination of your neighbors. Ukraine's cyber conflict with Russia is nothing new. Previously, in 2015 and 2016, hackers working under the orders of the Kremlin had caused power cuts to Ukrainian cities. Will this latest maneuver from President Putin's arsenal force Ukraine into submission? Or will the siege of Kyiv be a protracted affair? Only time shall tell.
India today has the biggest team of reporters on ground zero. Shweta Singh, Geeta Mohan, Rajesh Pawar, Syed Mohsen, Pawan Kumar and I will continue to get you reports from Ukraine. This battle is only set to intensify. But that is all that we have for you on this special broadcast from Strife-torn Kyiv. Many thanks for watching. For all the latest news and updates, keep watching India Today.